The sea is a graveyard. Foreign fishermen investigated for electrocuting UK fish. George Eustice, the Fisheries Minister, has ordered the Centre for Environment, Fisheries and Aquaculture Science, Cefas, a government agency, to investigate the environmental impact of pulse fishing. Pulse fishing uses electric shocks that are fired into the seabed to catch sealife, but the method kills other fish which the trawler men may not be targeting, according to research. Now Mr. Eustice has ordered the agency to investigate the environmental impact of this type of fishing. He told MPs last month that preliminary advice from Cefas was that there were some detrimental effects on fish species like cod. The pulses cause fish dwelling on the seafloor to spasm and spring up into nets, but they can also break the spines of large cod. Mr. Eustice added the impact of pulse fishing on the seabed was lower than for traditional beam trawling, where a heavy bar is dragged along the bottom. He is awaiting a final report from Cefas and could advocate restrictions being imposed on pulse trawling if it concludes that the harm outweighs the benefits. Pulse fishing is officially illegal in European Union waters, but the European Commission has granted exemptions, partly for research purposes, to about 100 trawlers. The vast majority are Dutch-owned and mainly fish in the UK North Sea. The European Parliament is due to vote on January 16 on a proposal that could result in the lifting of restrictions on pulse fishing. Visnet, which represents Dutch trawlers, said pulse trawling almost halves fuel consumption because the gear is lighter and the bycatch of unwanted species is also halved and the area swept is reduced by a fifth. Jeremy Percy, director of the Low Impact of Fishers of Europe, LIFE, which represents small-scale fishermen, told The Times some had reported a big decline in sole, cod and sea bass since the introduction of large-scale pulse fishing 3 years ago. The problem was partly that the trawlers could reach areas, such as the Thames estuary, which had previously been left untouched by beam trawlers because the seabed was too soft. Fish were being killed in these areas before they had a chance to spawn, he added. LIFE has gathered evidence from fishermen in the Thames estuary, with one saying, "It's like fishing in a graveyard after the pulse trawlers have been in the area, virtually everything is dead." Another said, "They are just sitting there, hoovering up the sole waiting to go up the Thames to spawn." Mr. Percy said, "It seems to be the marine equivalent of fracking. We don't know the long-term environmental impacts." Pim Visser, director of Visnet, said fishermen who opposed pulse trawling could be motivated by jealousy of a more efficient method. He said, "Our fishers have a bycatch of cod of less than 1.5%. He added pulse trawling had resulted in the Dutch fleet fishing closer to the UK, in areas previously mainly fished by British fishermen, but said Dutch trawlers were close to an agreement on avoiding some areas near the UK east coast. He urged LIFE to produce the evidence to support its claim about harm to other species. He said, "If you say there is a graveyard, show me the pictures and the evidence and let's talk about it." Michel Kaiser, professor of marine conservation at Bangor University and chairman of a committee of scientists assessing the impact of pulse fishing, said more research was needed. Experiments in aquariums showed most animals tested recovered very quickly from the electric shock, but in the sea they might fall victim to predators. He said, "There is also an enforcement concern given the possibility that a rogue fisherman might crank up the volts to increase catch. That issue can be solved by technology and suitable fines or other punitive action."